Dak Prescott has always been a polarizing figure in the NFL. Every season, he draws much debate about everything from his talent, performances, and where he ranks among the league's best quarterbacks. And his 2022 season only intensified that, because he wasn't exactly the most consistent quarterback out there. He can make a really good pass or a high-level throw that shows everyone just how good he can be, or he can miss a pass or commit a turnover that costs his team and draws ire. It showed in some of his stats, with Prescott finishing 8th in EPA per play amongst quarterbacks last season, but also leading the league in interceptions. Prescott's 2022 was wild, and I haven't seen anyone make a real, in-depth breakdown of that season yet, so I decided to do it myself. I wanted to ignore box score stats and actually look at his film, and while I looked, I wanted to answer some questions. How many of Dak's 17 interceptions were actually his fault? How much did Dak's supporting cast of players and coaches affect him positively or negatively? And how much of the Cowboys' offensive success was due to him? I looked at every game Prescott played last season, which totaled 15 counting playoffs, and I found 3 main things. These 3 things were that Dak Prescott is one of the best pocket passing quarterbacks in the league and also one of its most cerebral, his ball placement and ability to throw into tight windows is stellar, and that his tendency to take chances and make risky throws helped Dallas a lot, but also came back to bite them on many occasions. We'll take a look at all 3 of those things as well as his interceptions, but first, let's look at how the Cowboys offense did under Prescott and the supporting cast that he had around him last season. The Cowboys offense performed at a very high level with Dak Prescott under center. In the weeks that he played during the regular season, which were week 1 and weeks 7 through 18, Dallas ranked 6th in EPA per play and 7th in success rate. When he was hurt from weeks 2 through 6, the Cowboys ranked just 20th in EPA per play and 24th in success rate. Prescott elevated his team despite the fact that his supporting cast was less than stellar. CeeDee Lamb was great, earning a second-team All-Pro honor, but the rest failed to get close to the level he was playing at. Here's a chart showing the total EPA for each Cowboys pass catcher for proof, and as you can see, nobody even got close to Lamb. The next best guy here is T.Y. Hilton, who was signed in December, made his Dallas debut in week 16, and played just 5 games for the Cowboys counting playoffs. The only other guys who had positive EPAs were Jake Ferguson, a 4th-round rookie who was the backup tight end, and 2 running backs in Tony Pollard and Malik Davis. The rest are in the negative here, including several of Dallas' starters last season, such as receivers Noah Brown and Michael Gallup, and tight end Dalton Schultz, who sits at the bottom of this chart with the worst EPA. Dallas' receivers, sometimes including Lamb, were prone to bad drops, poor route running, and an inability to gain separation from defenders consistently. While offensive coordinator Kellen Moore, who's now with the Chargers, was a relatively good OC last year, his play calls would often force Dak to have to throw passes into several tight windows off 2 and 4 routes and short 5 and 6 routes. Part of that came from Dak's tendency to target throws into tight windows, which can explain his interception and turnover-worthy play numbers, but the play calls definitely forced Prescott into a majority of them. Also, despite what many think, Dallas' offensive line wasn't too impressive last season. It allowed 186 pressures, its 69.6 pass blocking grade is around league average, and its pass protection rating ranked 22nd in the league last season. Despite this, Prescott was sacked just 22 times last season, the 4th lowest among quarterbacks who started 10 or more games last season, which to me speaks more to Dak's ability to escape pressure and avoid sacks more than anything. We'll get into more of that later, but I want to start with how Dak wins by being one of the most cerebral quarterbacks in the league. The main way Dak succeeds is by sharply using his mind pre- and post-snap. It's nothing that will pop out on a highlight reel, but something important nonetheless. Let me show you an example from this game against the Lions. On one of Dak's first drives after returning from a thumb injury, he's going to see Josh Paschal jump more inside and this defender, Deshaun Elliott, come down to take his place. Elliott is blitzing and will try to get a running start, but Dak stops that from happening. He changes his cadence to stop Elliott in his tracks and makes a quick check to the other side of the field before snapping the ball. Detroit is running a cover 1 hole look here, and because of the coverage and where the man guarding Schultz is positioned, Dak knows he'll have his tight end in a favorable position up the seam in the space that Elliott just vacated. So, off the play fake, that's who Dak looks for immediately, and he places a nice over-the-shoulder throw into Schultz's breadbasket for a first down. Later in the game, Dak's cerebral ability earns Dallas another first down. It's 3rd and 8, and Prescott sees 2 defenders creeping down like they're about to blitz before he takes the snap. These 2 guys are in fact blitzing, and Prescott immediately counters it. He points out the extra rusher to his line, calls a change into pass protection to stop the blitz, and then sees the Lions in their coverage look, which will be a cover 2 after this safety drops back to make it a too high safety look. Dak's cadence causes one of the extra rushers to jump off sides, and after getting the free play, Prescott splits Detroit's zone coverage with a great throw to Lamb over the middle for a first down. He finds the soft spot well and targets it efficiently to get the job done. Here's Dak against the Eagles doing something similar. Before the play, Prescott sees these two defenders that are a threat to rush the passer, including one stepping up more towards the line of scrimmage. One of them won't blitz, but it leads Dak to change up the play. He calls an audible and wraps up the protection all on the fly, and again makes the defender jump off sides with his cadence. The free play allows Prescott to push the ball downfield, and he does so by targeting Lamb in the soft spot between 4 Philly defenders for a first down. It's quarterbacking at the highest level, and Prescott is even able to throw the ball in a manner that doesn't lead Lamb straight into the safety for a hospital pass. Instead, Prescott's pass allows Lamb to shield this defender and make the catch. And sometimes, Dak uses his football smarts to just create open receivers post-snap. Here's Dak in the playoffs against the Buccaneers on a 2nd and 10 where Tampa Bay is running a cover 3 look with a single high safety. Schultz is running a route that will veer to the outside before he sharply cuts inside towards the middle of the field. Prescott likes these routes and knows Schultz will have space once he clears Devin White, but also knows he needs to read off Logan Ryan up top to make him truly open. And that's exactly what Prescott does. When the play begins, Prescott has his eyes on the wide side of the field to get Ryan moving in that direction. Once Ryan's far enough, Dak quickly looks back towards Schultz on the boundary side and fires a good ball towards him to score the touchdown. We can use the tight angle to see just how long he was looking to his left by watching the stripe on his helmet, and he does so for just over 3 seconds before Schultz makes his cut back towards the middle. Just really good field vision and awareness from Dak here. This is Prescott's greatest asset, and it's the main thing that allows him to be as good as he is. The more a QB can read the defense pre-snap and post-snap, the better it allows him to break defenses down during the play, and that's exactly what Prescott does so well. Dak is rarely fooled by the blitz, almost always knows what type of coverage the defense is in, and is able to stay poised and calm in the pocket as a result. His mind allows him to do everything, from getting the ball out quick to his primary reads, to finding secondary options just as quickly, and pointing his offensive line in the right direction when a blitz is coming. Dak plays with such good command on the field, and it's been something he's been great at for his whole career. He needs to receive more credit for it, because very few quarterbacks are better at being cerebral than Prescott is. Now, let's talk about Prescott's throwing ability, which is another thing that makes him one of the best pocket passers in football. Specifically, I want to talk about his ball placement and tight window throws that allow him to be so successful. Prescott's aggressive throw rate, which takes almost every deep ball or tight window throw into account, was around 20% last season, higher than any quarterback who started 10 or more games. But despite that, his on-target percentage was around 76%, which was a similar rate to quarterbacks like Patrick Mahomes and Trevor Lawrence. He shows off this ability mostly in the quick game, where Dak is able to possess great timing and speed to get the ball where it needs to go. I was especially impressed with his anticipation and precision on these throws, and it seemed to be something that became almost too easy for him. Here's a really good example of this against the Jaguars. It's 3rd and 4, and Noah Brown is going to run a 6 route over the middle with Jacksonville in a cover 1 look with these 3 defenders dropping back into spaces underneath. Because there's so many defenders dropping back, the middle of the field is clawed with Jaguars, making any throw into that space difficult. But Dak finds a way to make it work. Once Brown breaks inside into his route, Prescott targets him with a fastball layered perfectly over Foyo Oluokun to where he doesn't even have enough time to react. The same is true with this defender as well, and Prescott throws this ball right at Brown's chest for a first down. Let's go back to that playoff game against the Bucs for the next example. It's first down, and Dak is once again facing a cover 1 look with this route combination to go up against it. Prescott is reading the boundary side of the field the entire way, and eventually keys in on Schultz's route up the sideline. Doesn't gain that much separation against Devin White, but Dak is still able to throw him a really good ball that somehow fits into the little space available for Schultz to make the grab. He bobbles the ball a bit, but still manages to haul it in. Sometimes even when Dak does throw these tight window passes, his pass catchers let him down. Here he is on a first down against the Texans where Dak is again keen on Schultz running this route. Once he clears Christian and Kirksey, Prescott will throw him the ball, and he'll have to do it quickly because Jonathan Owens is playing aggressively inside and will close down any route run towards the middle of the field. Even with that, Prescott still finds a way to get the ball to Schultz with a fast throw, but he can't come up with the grab. The tight angle gives us a better look at not only where this ball was placed, but how bad of a drop this actually was from Schultz. It hits him right in the hands, but he can't make the catch. Here's a 3rd and 4 against the Eagles where Dak will target this curl route from Gallup to try and get the first down. It's a cover 1 look, meaning James Bradbury will be right on Gallup the whole way. Gallup doesn't gain any kind of separation, but is able to have enough for Prescott to be willing to target him. It's another good throw into a tight space, and Gallup just drops it. We can get a better look at the drop from the tight angle, as this ball hits Gallup square in the chest, and he's just unable to complete the catch. Dak's ball placement doesn't just excel in these situations either, as he's able to show it off in a variety of other ways. Here's a longer throw on a 3rd and goal against the Giants. After the snap, Dak will take a quick peek at the middle of the field before setting his eyes on Schultz's corner route. In New York's zone coverage, Schultz gets passed off to Nick McLeod up top, and he does a good job of playing tight on him. But that doesn't matter to Prescott. Right before Schultz breaks out into the route, he makes his throw towards him and puts it on the money. It's a high point ball that's put in a place where only Schultz can make a play on it, and this picture-perfect pass is enough for a touchdown. He's also able to make throws like this on the run, like on this play against the Eagles. It's another long 3rd and goal, and Philly is playing a cover 2 look. Once Dak takes the snap, he can't find anything open and is forced to scramble once Brandon Graham beats Tyron Smith on the right side. But Dak stays calm and sees Gallup as he scrambles. He's practically the only option at this point in the play as Lamb is well covered up top, and Dak throws him a fantastic ball that's not only high pointed, but takes Marcus Epps almost out of the play entirely. There's no chance for Epps to make a play on it, and it's a touchdown for Dallas. It's a really good throw from Dak that's made even more impressive by the fact he's on the run when he throws it. And finally, Dak is able to do it on deep balls as well. This is one of my favorite Dak plays from this past season when he converted a 3rd and 30 against the Eagles. The Cowboys are obviously running 3 deep routes up the field against Philly's cover 2 sink look where the corners will follow the receivers, but anything deep falls on the safeties. Prescott stays patient after the snap and waits for T.Y. Hilton to clear Darius Slay, and once he does, he unleashes a super ball downfield for him. This had to have gone more than 60 yards in the air, and it just keeps going on a perfect arc until it finally reaches Hilton. And when it does, even though the ball has already traveled a great distance, it's still able to hit Hilton out in front. It's a fantastic throw in a critical situation, and if it doesn't happen, the Cowboys probably lose this game. These throws lead me to my next topic, which is Dak's tendency to take chances and push the ball downfield a lot. While it can sometimes lead to really bad throws, and I promise we will get to those, it often works out for Dallas. While his smarts and ball placement are great traits of his, this is what makes the Cowboys' offense as good as it is, because it allows them to move the ball at a really good rate, leading to points. This ability especially shows up on 3rd downs, where believe it or not, Dak's EPA actually grew the longer the 3rd down was, sitting at around 0.5 for 3rd and 10s and nearly 2.0 for 3rd and 20s. And because of this, Dallas posted some of the NFL's highest conversion rates on 3rd down, and especially on 3rd and longs, staying at a steady 40% conversion rate when facing a 3rd and 10 or longer, which was significantly higher than the league average last season. Let's look at some of those 3rd down plays where Dak took a chance, starting with this 3rd and 9 against the Bears. Lamb is on a motion before running a post route that should split the corner and the deep safety up top, and Chicago runs a rock and roll check against him to counter the motion. After a play fake and a look to the wide side of the field to get the safety leaning right, Dak pushes the ball downfield to Lamb and puts it right on the money for a touchdown. Really good throw from Prescott here. Here's a 3rd and 12 against the Texans where Houston is running a deep coverage look. Dallas is running this route combination against it and will have Brown on a straight 9 route. Dak will first try to target Lamb over the middle, but he's covered, forcing him to scramble as the pocket is collapsing. He then keys in on Brown, and despite being on the move and Brown being well downfield, he launches a deep pass toward him that's able to get there for Brown to make the catch after a really good adjustment from Brown. It's not out in front of Brown and he has to come back to make the catch. Doesn't matter, Prescott threw this ball at least 55 yards in the air while on the move with multiple defenders chasing him. This isn't a 3rd down play, but it's another example of Dak taking a chance, and this time it's in the playoffs where the Cowboys are backed up inside their own red zone. It's 1st down, and the Cowboys are running double 9 routes on both sides with Lamb and Gallup. Prescott sees Talanoa Hufanga drop down to create a single high coverage look and knows he'll have his best receiver in Lamb one-on-one downfield. Dak could have taken this check down with Ezekiel Elliott, but instead chooses to launch a ball downfield towards Lamb. This throw will be a little bit behind Lamb, but keep in mind that there were winds reaching 20 miles per hour in Santa Clara that night, and Dak is throwing against those strong winds here. Despite these conditions, Prescott is still able to throw the ball 52 yards in the air and have it reach Lamb, who makes an insane adjustment to make the catch. But some of his chances or tight window throws ended up costing the Cowboys, and this is where we'll reach an important part of this video. We're going to talk about Dak's interceptions. Before I do, I want to show you some bad throws that were almost interceptions, like this one against the Bucs in week 1. It's 2nd and 8, and Dallas is running a dagger concept on the wide side of the field where Brown will run a deep crosser and Lamb will run the deep dagger route behind him. The idea of the concept is to get these defenders shading to their left while Brown runs his crosser, so it can open up space for Dak to throw it to Lamb here. But Tampa isn't completely fooled, as Antoine Winfield passes Brown off to Mike Edwards and Levante Davis stays put on the right side of the field. Despite this, Dak throws to Lamb anyway. It takes a long time for the ball to get there, and it's almost picked off after a deflection. Here's another near interception against the Colts on a 3rd and 4 play. Dallas is running short routes in the middle and deep curls on the outside, with Dak's primary read being the routes inside. Prescott goes through his progressions and eventually makes his way towards Schultz, but Rodney McLeod plays this extremely well and reads Prescott like a book, quickly converging on Schultz well before Dak makes the throw. Prescott tries to fit the ball for a catch, he can't, and the ball is tipped by McLeod and almost picked. Now, let's get into his interceptions. While some were indeed bad throws, or throws that came from his tendency to try and force passes when they aren't there, some came from things that were out of his control that we already discussed, such as poor receiver play or bad coaching. I'm going to break down every interception and split them into the ones that are his fault and the ones that aren't his fault. So let's begin. Against the Bucks, Dak tries to make something happen on a 3rd and 10 and targets this curl route with Brown. But the throw misses its mark. It's where 2 defenders are, and it's easily picked by Winfield. I will point out here that Brown could have done more by trying to make his way forward towards this window in between the 2 defenders to try and help out his quarterback. Instead, he just stands there and watches the interception happen. But it's still a bad force and a bad throw. This pick is on Dak. Here, it's 1st down against the Bears, and Dak will try to push the ball downfield to get Dallas some points before halftime. He'll target Lamb on what's supposed to be a 6 route, but he ends up running this route extremely poorly. Because of Lamb's bad route, Prescott's throw travels further and allows Eddie Jackson to make the interception. You absolutely cannot run these routes diagonally. You either have to completely come flat across the middle or take it up the seam. Running it the way Lamb did causes him to run straight into Jackson, allowing him to make the play. I guarantee if Lamb runs this route flat, it's a catch and a 1st down with the way Dak threw the ball, and this pick is not on him. Here's the first of 2 picks against the Packers, and I don't think either are on Dak. Schultz and Lamb are going to end up in the same spot well into the play, and I'm not exactly sure why. What I think was supposed to happen was Lamb was supposed to come flat on a short route across the middle of the field, while Schultz goes higher towards the goal line, but that's not what happens. First, Lamb runs his route higher than he should, so he's not even in the right spot, and Schultz runs his route so lazily that I can't even begin to describe how poor it is. He doesn't run his route far enough, so Rudy Ford doesn't even have to move before coming down to cover Schultz, and then Schultz doesn't even come flat. He fades this up towards Ford, which makes it easier for Ford to make a play on the ball. Again, if this route is run flat here, with the way Prescott threw this pass, it's a catch and likely a touchdown. And maybe it isn't, but it's certainly not an interception. And even if you don't and you're gonna run a poor route anyway, at least look for the ball when it's thrown to you so you can try to make a play on it. Just poor route running all around. This pick against the Giants is just down to miscommunication. It's obvious that Dak and Gallup weren't on the same page here. Prescott throws this pass like it's a comeback route, and given the way Gallup looks back at the ball, I highly doubt that it's not a comeback route. But Gallup doesn't even run this like a comeback, instead fading more up when he turns to look for the pass. If he came back to the quarterback like he should have, is this pass complete? Who knows? Rodarius Williams does a great job of converging on the ball to complete the interception. I think Dak could have potentially passed up on this route, but it would have been easier for him if Gallup ran the correct route, which is why I'm putting this more on him and not on Dak. Here's his second pick against New York, and I can see why Dak threw this ball the way he did. Lamb is running a vertical up the seam, and these 2 safeties will try to break up the pass when it's thrown. In order to prevent this, Prescott tries to avoid throwing this ball so far out in front so the safeties can't make a play, and also so Lamb doesn't get blown up after he makes the catch. But this pass doesn't exactly hit Lamb in the chest, and instead is more towards Darnay Holmes. After looking at the tight angle, I'm putting this interception on Dak. Here's one against the Colts where Gallup will certainly attempt to run an out route. He's up against Stephon Gilmore in man coverage, and once he breaks out into the route, he gets absolutely no separation. He seems to just try and run through Gilmore instead of going around him, and he ends up going nowhere. Dak tries to put his faith in Gallup, and I believe he thought he was going to be more out in front of Gilmore, but he isn't, and the pass is picked. Another option that Gallup had was to just take this route vertically instead of laterally because Gilmore is taking away almost everything inside, but he doesn't and runs a horrible route instead. You can't run into this corner on an out route, which is why I'm not putting this one on Dak. If Gallup ran a good route, this ball's probably not intercepted. I'm going to blame this pick on either poor play design or a bad route from Schultz, and here's why. Normally when you have a slant, you'll either have another route like an out or something else into the flat to influence a defender away from the slant route. In this case, Schultz runs vertically at the seam. This has to be a mistake, or else it's just terrible play design, because why on earth would you run these two routes so close together? The route does nothing to get this defender out of the way, and because of that, the slant is well covered. But even with the bad play design, Dak should see the coverage and not throw it. He doesn't, and it's an interception. Because of that, I'm calling this a 50-50 pick with a bad throw and the poor play design that caused it. Here's a second against the Texans where Dallas is backed up inside their own 10 and Schultz is going to run a sticks or dodge route here. I'm not sure how much this ball was influenced by the pressure from Ogbonnia Okoronkwo, if it was even influenced at all by him, but either way, Prescott just misses Schultz here. Because I'm pointing out everything, I will say Schultz does nothing to attack the ball and instead just sits there like a spectator, but this pick is on Dak. Here against the Jaguars, the Cowboys are backed up again, and this is a play where Dak just turns something bad into something worse. He tries to play hero a bit too often, and he did so here, attempting to fit the ball into a very tight space while on the move. Dak can certainly pull off a play like this, and he has before, and his arm is grazed a bit as he throws this, but this isn't a good decision regardless. Dak should have just tucked this ball and got whatever he could while running, and instead, he commits a bad turnover. But this interception is not on Dak, and it's pretty easy to see why. The ball is simply dropped by Brown and tipped up in the air for a pick. Brown also leans back for some reason while catching this instead of coming more towards the ball, which causes the ball to bounce off from the way it did. I'm not entirely sure why he did that. Maybe he thinks he's going to turn upfield and get extra yards or something like that, but it's poor receiver play regardless. On 1st and 10 against the Eagles, Dak tries to dump a pass off on a PA rollout and ends up getting intercepted by Josh Sweat for a touchdown. It's just a really poor pass from Prescott that's not layered enough over Sweat to get to the intended target, which allows Sweat to make a play on it. This pick is on Dak. This one isn't even debatable. Peyton Hendershot practically hands this ball to Kevin Byard here. Not even close. Nowhere near being Dak's fault. But this next one was on him. Dak is trying to get Dallas points before halftime and keys in on this out route from Schultz, and it's just a really poor pass that leads to the pick. First, Byard is playing extremely tight coverage, so any throw here will be difficult, and secondly, the pass is behind Schultz, so he can't even make a play on it anyway. Just a really bad throw from Prescott here. It's the same situation here against the Commanders. Dak will try to make something happen on 3rd and 6 and targets another 5 route with Brown. But the pass is way too far inside, allowing Kendall Fuller to pick it off and score. It's a poor throw, and probably one that was worse than the last interception. Here's a big one, which was in the playoffs against the 49ers. It's 3rd and 9, and Dak will first key in on this route from Lamb over the middle before trying one of the comebacks on the outside. Lamb has 2 defenders near him, so Prescott goes to Gallup, which was an easier route to throw to anyway. Dak is under pressure, and the ball is late coming out, but once it is thrown, Gallup just stops running. I don't know what caused Gallup to stop running, maybe he didn't think he was getting the ball or something, but you can't just quit on the route like this. Deommodore Lenoir, the cornerback here, breaks on this ball better than the actual receiver does, which is just mind-blowing to me. He shows more hustle to get to the ball than Dak's own receiver does, and it ends up as a pick. Don't get me wrong, this ball is late coming out, but Gallup needs to run this route better. If he did, it may not have been completed, but it wouldn't have been picked either. Here's the final interception, and one that I am going to put on Dak. The 49ers are running Palms coverage where Lenoir and Tashawn Gibson will read pass catchers 1 and 2. Anything vertical between the two will be taken by Gibson, and anything shorter in the flat will be taken by Lenoir. So who's guarding the middle of the field here? That would be a linebacker in Fred Warner. The 49ers can do this, and they're the only team that can run this kind of coverage like this because Warner is just so good in coverage. If Lamb runs basically anything towards him, deep or short, Warner will take it, while Jimmy Ward, the nickel, will take anything outside of him. The flat and vertical routes are covered well due to the aforementioned coverage, leaving Lamb as the man Dak is left with. Lamb is running a pivot route where he'll go inside before breaking back out towards Ward, and once Lamb goes inside, Warner is all over him. But Ward senses something is up. Dallas thought he would be distracted by Schultz going more outside, which would leave Lamb open as he cuts away from Warner, but Ward isn't fooled. Ward doesn't even take a step towards Schultz and instead keys on Lamb, and bam, he's right there to catch him coming back outside to force the interception. It's a good play from the 49ers, but Dak didn't do himself any favors by staring Lamb down for a good amount of time, thereby alerting Ward to Lamb. What Dak could have done instead was keep back on Hilton or Schultz again to see if he could get Ward leaning to the outside like Dallas hoped, but Dak doesn't do that. Instead, he forces a throw, a bad one, and it's intercepted. You could debate whether the 8 interceptions that were Dak's fault in the 14 games he played in were too many, but many were down to his supporting cast letting him down. And that's one of the points I'm making. Despite what you may have been told, Prescott wasn't surrounded by many great players last year. After Lamb, the rest of Dak's main pass catchers were Michael Gallup coming off a torn ACL, and it showed, Noah Brown, who had never rose above being a wide receiver 4 in his previous 5 seasons, and Dalton Schultz, a middle-of-the-road tight end who the Cowboys elected not to bring back this offseason. Sometimes, Dak even had to bail out more when he would call something unnecessary like whatever this was against the Bucs. It put Dallas at a 2nd and 18, but with 2 good throws from Dak on the next 2 plays, the Cowboys have a first down anyway despite Moore's bad play call on first down. And even with all of that, the Cowboys still have one of the league's best offenses with Prescott, just like they always have, which is a testament to his talent. I didn't even have time to talk about some of his other skills, like his ability to remain poised under pressure like on this play against the Bucs, and his ability to avoid pressure altogether like he exhibits here against the Texans, which were needed due to Dallas's less than stellar offensive line. And while it's been less of a factor lately due to a string of injuries, Prescott's running ability remains as well. This season, he'll have Brandon Cooks, who's a great downfield threat, and a guy who should be a really good wide receiver too alongside Lamb. Add a new offensive philosophy that will rely less on throws to stationary receivers and more on concepts that allow receivers to be more on the move, and Prescott should have a better situation to work with in 2023. I'm excited to see what the so-called Texas Coast offense will bring to the Cowboys, and I expect Dak to have another really good season running it. There's way too much noise around Dak Prescott without any kind of substance. When you watch certain people on TV or scroll through certain parts of social media, you'll get these baffling opinions about Dak that I don't understand. I get where they come from. People look at Dak's last game of the season in 2022, see him not perform as well as he should have, and paint with a wide brush as if that's how he is all the time. My rebuttal to this is we need to stop analyzing quarterbacks based on one game, or one playoff game. Doing that is more than just looking at the last game of the season and taking their whole body of work into account instead of just a small part of it. I don't see how anyone with an informed and educated opinion on Prescott can come away thinking that he isn't a really good quarterback, because the film shows that he is. And that's why I think too many people argue about Dak in bad faith. They'll bring up bad narratives, or box score stats, or cherry-pick plays to try and downplay his ability, and I don't get it. Why do people do this? Do they hate Dak? Do they hate the Cowboys? If so, why does their hate cloud their judgment? Even if you bring up his 49ers game, he's not a bad playoff performer overall, totaling 11 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 1,559 passing yards, and a passer rating of 92.3 in 6 playoff games. And by total EPA, his game against the Bucs last year was one of the best playoff performances of the entire 21st century, as evidenced by this chart here. And this one shows how he's consistently added value across his career, never deviating and always elevating his team. The bottom line is this: Dak Prescott is not bad, overrated, or mediocre. He's a great quarterback that's proven time and time again that he can play at a high level, elevate his team to one of the best offenses in the league regardless of who's around him, and most importantly, possess the ability to do things that few other quarterbacks in this league can do. Sure, he hasn't been to a Super Bowl. Maybe he'll get there, maybe he won't. But that's one of the only things he has left to do. After all, he's cleared every other bar already. That brings us to the end of this video. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to this channel, turn on notifications, and comment and share this video as well. And as always, thanks for watching.